Hello gardening friends. I just wanted to show you what forsythia looks like for those of you who don't know. This bush was never pruned and it's grown really large. We have a lot of forsythia bushes in the backyard, and I'm going to go over to some other bushes so you can hear all the birds chirping. We have a lot of birds that like to hide and sing in the forsythia. So this is like a forsythia jungle out here. These hedges grow like weeds in our backyard. They're just starting to come into bloom. And it does form a nice hedge, but they grow really, really fast. So every few years we trim these way back and they just grow back again. They're just really fast growers. They bloom usually around late March. They're a little early this year for us. It's been a little bit of an early spring, it seems. So last year my husband got me this nice little planter at BJ's, and there was some Swiss chard growing in here. It was growing pretty much through December, and I'm just going to clean this out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some peat moss, which I have left over from last year, and some gardening soil that I purchased a couple weeks ago. And normally I'd add some potting mix in there to give it some vermiculite or perlite, and I just don't have that on hand. So the garden soil and the peat moss are going to have to do for now. And in this little planter, I'm planning on planting some of my bok choy seedlings and any Swiss chard. So here are my supplies. I have this Miracle-Gro garden soil that I'm going to mix with this peat moss. I'm trying to show you the brand. It looks like Lambert. I got this big bag a couple years ago, and it's full of tape and some leaves, but I'm going to mix the peat moss with the garden soil, and I'll show you that. And then I have some pots that I'm planting. What I do in very early May or very late April is I plant my cucumbers, and I'll be planting my my beans and my cucumbers out in pots on the deck, and then when they grow a few inches, then I transplant them out into the garden. So what I had to do with these pots, I got these actually at Christmas tree shops a few weeks ago, and you have to just poke holes in the bottom. Recently I got a couple of these white ones at Target. They have little reservoirs in the bottom with holes in the bottom, and then so I have some peat moss in this container here, and then I have some garden soil in this container here, and I'm just going to be adding both of them into this planter and just mixing it up, because this soil is still, pretty rich, as I had a lot of potting mix in here last summer, and I did fertilize in here last summer, but just wanted to add some fresh soil, and I'll be doing that now. So now I have a mixture of peat moss and garden soil. It's about a mixture composed of roughly 50% peat moss and 50% garden soil, and I just fluffed it up. So now it's all ready for planting. And I'll show you some other tasks that I've been working on. One of the things I'm doing today is I'm taking these pea plants outside to get them acclimated to the sun. These have been growing under the grow lights in my basement for about 2 weeks now, and they're getting pretty big. So I'm going to put them outside for a couple hours today to get them used to the sun. And in the coming days, I'll show you how the rest of my seedlings are doing. So here are the peas sitting outside. I'm just going to have them out a couple hours. It's a really nice day. It's pretty sunny out, so I don't want to give them too much sun today. I want to get them gradually used to the sun, and then hopefully this weekend I can plant them outside in the garden. So the other day I finished putting the strands of fishing line all around these 13 posts here that I have. They go up to probably about 5 feet. I may do another strand at the top. Some of the strands are really taut and other ones are loose, so like I said, I may have to tighten some of the strands or replace some of them. But last summer this worked out pretty well, and I'm just showing you what I did is I went into the garden just to try to figure out where I was planting certain things, and I just laid out stakes just to mark off where I think I should plant things. And we'll go into the garden now and I'll just show you where I'm planning on planting everything. So right when you walk in, I was planning on having my 2 different varieties of cucumbers growing right here, and I have these two trellises here that have some problems with the base. You can see they won't really go into the ground. They're almost broken at the bottom, so I'm just leaning them up against each other, kind of like a teepee trellis. And then I have these poles here. I used these last summer for my cucumbers and it did well. I have string that I run between these to form a lattice so the vines can climb up them. And then over here I just have a couple old trellises that I put up, and I'm going to have the beans growing on these trellises as well as these poles. And the nice thing is I have extra poles, so I may as they grow, I'm going to be just adding more poles with duct tape and just extending the height of these posts with just using duct tape to put another pole on top of the existing pole. So over here I just have an area that I think I'm going to grow my sugar snap peas. This is underneath tree cover and it gets a little shady here at certain points in the day, and I know peas can handle a little bit of light shade and they won't get as hot over in this section of the garden. And then right in the middle of the garden I'm planning on planting the lettuce and the Swiss chard and the baby bok choy. And then along the outside area in the back I'm planning on planting my squash. Now last summer I grew winter squash, I grew butternut squash and acorn squash, and they all died on me. So I grew winter squash and they didn't do well. They succumbed to powdery mildew and died on me. But this summer I'm growing patty pan squash, so I'm hoping that does better. I know that squashes get pretty big and it's my first time growing them, so I'll see how that goes, and I'm planning on planting those in this back half. So it is now a couple days later and I have the pea plants outside again to harden them off, and they grew a little bit more, and I'm actually also letting my lettuce seedlings and my baby bok choy seedlings get a little sun today. It's a little bit breezy, but I figured it's getting close to the time that I'll be transplanting the lettuce. I have 2 different varieties of lettuce here. The ones on the right side grew a little faster than the ones on the left side. And the baby bok choy looks really healthy as well. It's just a little bit leggy. So I did have these occasionally on my heating mats in the basement when the basement got cool over the last 3 weeks. But in general I had them off the heating mat. But the temperatures downstairs in the basement were around 65 degrees. And I will be planting the bok choy in this planter that you see excuse me, back here, as well as in the garden, which is right over there. Real quick, this is a knockout rose that I have in front of our house, and as you can see there's a lot of red buds and a couple leaves are coming out. Every spring I prune this, and there's a couple dead branches I'm gonna have to take out, but I prune this every spring. I just wait and see what branches look like they might be dead, and then I take those out and I prune it. I pruned it really hard last fall, so I don't expect to really take it down too much further, but I want to just prune off the dead branches. And nothing is blooming yet, not even my daffodils or the hyacinth, but I have a lot of lilies and they're starting to pop up. So I used just some driveway markers as stakes for the peas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some duct tape that I have and I'm going to add more markers to extend these stakes, because they're only about 4.5 feet tall, and I expect the peas to get a bit taller than that. And then when the peas are finished, I can take down the stakes and use some of them for the cucumbers when the cucumbers are ready. I just don't have enough stakes for everything. This is what I've done so far. I just put 2 driveway markers together with duct tape, and it is a little flimsy. It's not going to be the strongest trellis for these peas, but the peas are going to weigh a little less than the beans do, so I'm hoping it lasts for a while. Okay, so now I have all of these markers as stakes, and I've duct taped 2 different markers on top of each other to create longer stakes. These are about 7 feet tall, and I expect the peas to be getting close to 6 or 7 feet tall, so they should hopefully work out. And now what I'm going to do is take this twine that I have and string some twine in between the stakes. So this is what I have so far for the peas. I haven't finished stringing up the string. I use this pink type of twine that will be resistant to the weather. It's not going to break apart. I used it last year for my cucumbers, and hopefully I have the spacing correct in terms of the distance between the strands. But I'm planting about 30 pea plants in this area, and I'll be doing that over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and I will show you when I get them in the ground.